Beloved, happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. This is Desiree Harris Bonner of DH Bonner Virtual Solutions, LLC. And it is my blessing and pleasure to bring today someone who I've had the opportunity to help birth a book baby that is part of who she is and what she does on a day-to-day basis. It's her passion. So I'm really excited about what this conversation's going to produce, not only for the conversation itself, but in you, because there's some things, leadership conversations, well, I'll let her tell it. Let's bring on Anne Marie Otanez.
Hello,
Hey,
hello.
girl.
Hello.
We're here. We did it.
We did it. It only took us 2 tries and 20 minutes of internet difficulties, but we did it. So thank you so much. That was welcome.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure and my honor. I want to make sure that everyone knows who you are. Okay, because a lot of individuals that do the kind of work you do is kind of in the background.
Yeah.
Right? But I want to bring you to the forefront today and let people know who you are and what it is that you do. So I'm going to step off the stage and let you tell them exactly what that is.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Anne Marie Otanez, and I am the Chief of Staff Architect. What is that? So there's been a lot of talk in probably the last 10 years about this role of a Chief of Staff. And I have been lucky enough to be doing this role for such a long time that my association with Desiree was to, like she said, birth a book about what is a Chief of Staff? Why is it such a critical role? Why are we hearing so much about it? And if you are interested, how can you get in on the ground level to make sure that you understand the competencies, understand how to function, and just know that it is something that you can do, and it's not something that is limited to those who are in the military space. It is in every industry. You're going to find a chief of staff in the tech space. You're going to find them in the fintech space. You're going to find them in the medical space. We are everywhere. And the role is such a critical piece to the strategic movement of an organization that I'm delighted to be able to talk a little bit about it, talk about why it's something that is passionate for me, and how I help people either enter into that space, or if you're already into that space, how do you develop yourself fully so you can really be a force multiplier?
I really enjoy everything that you're saying. What I want to understand is that, because you said not only in the military space. So we understand that the chief of staff was originally governmental, or is that the history of it?
It was. So I have a delightful mentor who actually shared with me the story about how the chief of staff came into effect. And she recounts the story back to the days of Napoleon. And so when he was dealing with his large armies and all of the military personnel, he actually appointed a person who was his chief of staff. That person had significant military background, so they could step in place for him and provide direction, understand the voice. And they weren't Napoleon, but they were able to channel what they felt was most important to him and essentially run the staff. And so the chief of staff role, like I said, it's such a critical role because it's literally the number 2. Okay. If your principal, if your executive needs something done and they turn to you. If they cannot be in a discussion, they turn to you. You need to have enough understanding of the domain area. So if you're not, again, so we're talking about military, but if you're in the tech space, understand enough about your domain that you can speak on behalf of that person while respecting what their views are, but understanding what is the ask of you when you walk out of a situation. So you are their right hand, essentially.
How then is the chief of staff different from an executive assistant?
That's a great question, because that is something that there's so much discussion about it. So let me preface my comment first by saying, regardless of what your role is, you can do anything.
Okay.
So an executive assistant can aspire to be anything. A product manager can aspire to be anything. Understanding that you have options to do whatever you want to do, so long as you have resources, development, mentorship, you can get there. With that preface, the executive assistant is also a really important key partner, but they focus mainly on a lot of the tactical aspects of the role.
Okay.
An easy example is I never handle calendaring for my executive, but it is super important. And the executive assistant understands all of the nuances, where that person needs to be asking the right questions. I might collaborate with the executive assistant and say, hey, there's going to be this interview that's happening. We need to make sure that the executive is ready. So I'm prepping the materials, sure that there is time for that executive to prep themselves, review the materials, and if they have additional questions, let's collaborate together to make sure that they feel fully supported in whatever they're about to embark upon. And so while there is like nuanced differences between the two of them, they are very different and distinct roles. And I think some of the chatter that's going on right now is, can an EA be a chief of staff? Which is why I started out with anybody can do anything depending on what they have available to them to get them to that space. So hopefully that helps, because that's a great question.
Yeah, because I think having read the book, I think one of the added pieces, I love that you said you used the word tactical, right? So you have this front, I think of the executive as a front end, right? Whereas a chief of staff, you said they're his right hand. So I think the thing, if you move, even if you are an executive assistant, moving into a chief of staff role, or a project manager moving into a chief of staff role, I think it's the strategic piece and understanding the vision of the organization as a whole and how that leader fits into it and what their voice is in it.
Yes, yes.
Because in order for you, if I understand correctly, to be able to operate in their stead, you'd have to have a full understanding of all those things.
You would. So I like to say that it's the trifecta.
Okay.
You've got the executive who has their vision and strategy. You've got the executive assistant who there's so much that person sees, so much, and so much of the details.
Yes.
And then you've got a chief of staff who also acts like a bridge between that, as well as to external stakeholders. I am the most successful when I have executive assistant who works in tandem with me, and I work in tandem with them.
It's a team.
It's a team. It's very bi-directional. It's not I'm giving you and you're telling me. We work in tandem and we talk jointly about this is what's happening. Is there an understanding? And there's times where they may not understand. And I've got an executive assistant right now who she'll say, here's some context that you may not know about what's about to go down, which I fully appreciate. So it is definitely a team relationship in this trifecta of the three of us.
Excellent. So what made you decide to write a book about it?
Okay, so I have never thought of myself as a writer.
Okay.
Never. I mean, I went to high school, went to college, did my writing classes, English, all of that. And as I was working in my current employment, one of my peers and I, we noticed that a lot of people kept coming to us and asking us, I'm hearing about the chief of staff. I'm hearing about the chief of staff. Can you tell me about it? Can you tell me about it? And we actually hosted a chief of staff training for quite a few individuals so they could understand the role. After this was done, it was like an idea that popped into my head and left. I said, I should write a book about this. And then it went away.
Okay.
It was just a thought. And then I had a sponsor, which I'm always telling people, if you don't have a sponsor and a mentor, you're missing a critical piece of your development. I had a sponsor say, well, write it. Just do it. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to figure it out. And I remember when I'd looked at different individuals and something about you and I, like there was something that resonated between the two of us, which is why I was glad you had the space and and that we could work together. And I gave myself a really aggressive deadline, as you can remember, because I did not have an understanding of what it took to write a book, because I thought I'm just going to put some ideas, it's going to flow, and then we'll be good. And as we went through the process, I realized, oh no, this is a lot more work than I anticipated. I knew that it would be hard work.
Yeah.
But as I was putting pen to paper and my ideas started to flow, I fell in love with what I was writing about because I
Mm-hmm.
I know this space so well. I can do it with my
Yes.
eyes closed. And I mentor people in this space. Why not write it down and give people some kind of a blueprint so they understand? And here I have my first book. I still pinch myself.
I remember when we were doing the drafts themselves, there was, there's this span of time where you're working through something and it's muddy, right?
Mhm,
You got
mhm.
all these ideas and all these thoughts, but they don't have a cohesive flow yet.
Yes.
They haven't been fully meted out,
Yes.
fleshed out. And oh my gosh, it was so difficult in that moment because you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
then once you got that idea and you
Mhm.
saw it starting to take form and take shape, then you went, oh yeah, and you start filling in the blanks,
Yes.
and it came back so full.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was so proud of you.
I think the thing that's really interesting for me in writing a book is that I have so much in my head. And when I actually put pen to paper, it was a fraction of what was in my head because there was an assumption that if I said this, people would get it. And I think
Okay.
that's where you and your team really helped flush things out because I don't think that we recognize how much IP we have in our minds.
Amen.
And when you actually start to write things down, you have to work back and say, wait a minute, they might not know step A, and I've already got them at step, C,
Yes.
D, E. So let's
Yes.
go back to step A and really build that foundation. And it was a very different way to think about this role
Yes.
because I'd been doing it for such a long time. And it was, well, just read and you'll get it. Well, no, they're not just going to get it because you're going to get people who are new to the scene, as well
Mhm.
as people who are in a different space trying to understand exactly the concepts that I'm trying to explain to them.
And they're going to have gaps in their knowledge, right?
Yes.
Not only
Yeah.
in their knowledge, but then in their experience. And so they may not understand the why and twos and
Yeah.
wherefores, right? And so you have to walk them through it as if they've never done it before.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That was hard.
Yeah.
That's the part that's hard because it's like, well, I mean, they're going to get it, Desiree. What are you talking about? Not quite, Emery. Come back with me. Come back with me.
Yeah. So good job. What is it that you want to do with the book now that it's done?
So I know I have another book in me.
Okay.
I think I got another 2 in me, actually.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Like I said, writing was not on my bucket list, but once I caught the bug, I was like, oh no, I can do this. My desire with this book is to help demystify, and we always use this word, but truly demystify what is a chief of staff? How can you be effective in this role? And what are the things that you need to know agnostic of industry? Because all chiefs will do some things that are similar across their portfolio. There's an amount of workforce management that I do, regardless of if I was in the medical space or if I was in the military space. There's an aspect of which you know so well of ghostwriting that I have to do for my executive, regardless of what my industry is. And so there are some of the same shared knowledge bases that people just need to know. And then tapping into some of the skills that you already have, knowing that that can propel you into a role like this. There are things that we do naturally that lend us to be good chief of staffs.
Yes.
Being able to interact with a broad group of individuals. I love interacting with people. Love it. And as a chief of staff, I tell people, you're the heart of the organization. And the reason you're the heart of the organization is you may have a leader who has a C in their title, and even like whatever that title is. And for whatever reason, you have a group of folks who are hesitant to reach out. Not a good or bad thing. It just is what it is. The chief of staff is that conduit sometimes. People will come to me and talk to me about things before they go and talk to my executive.
Yes.
And so being approachable and being that person that they know they can go to, if that's something that you naturally like to do, you should investigate the role of a chief of staff.
I think what I want to say about this book is that I think this book is also good for those who may not even want to be a chief of staff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
want to be a better project manager. They want to
Yes.
be a better program manager. They want to be a better executive admin. They want to
Yes.
be a better whatever that is that helps to make up that part of the team that supports the organizational goals and or supports the executive, right? I think this book will be good for them too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have some foundational things in there that would work across the board.
Absolutely. So it's funny because you went down that path. I actually wanted to take you down a different
Okay,
path because when
sure.
we had done our cohort, I think we had close to 20 people in that first cohort. And it covered 10 different core competencies. And then we actually had a panel of people who had chief of staffs. So they
Okay.
talked about what was important to them. And then we had a group of chief of staffs who had been in role for a long time and they shared their experiences. And at the end of our cohort, we had, I think, 2 people say, I don't want to be chief of staff.
Say, nope, not for me.
And so what you're saying, like they found a lot of the skills that we were teaching to super useful.
Yes.
But at the end, they're like, this is not the role that I necessarily want to follow.
Yes.
And I thought, you know what, that's actually a really good milestone for us, that we were able to share enough context about the role that somebody felt informed enough to say, this was interesting, but it's not my cup of tea.
Yes.
But thank you for everything that I learned along this journey, because I can take these pieces. You know, I started out as a project manager.
Mm-hmm,
So my role was bringing people together, being given something to do and being told, finish this by this date. And then I had to go figure it out.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of things that even if you're not a chief of staff, you're going to see concepts where you say, a communication plan. I need a communication plan.
Yeah.
How do I pull one together? Oh, listening rhythms. I've got to have listening rhythms for my team. How do I pull that together? The dreaded sometimes offsites that are hard for people to pull together. I share with you ways for you to pull together an offsite so it becomes this experience that is enjoyed by all who participate. So you bring up a really, really good point about the types of individuals that can still get something out of the book, although they may not be a chief of staff.
Yes. I think if I remember correctly, you've also are moving back into the curriculum space.
I am. You know what? You are the best hype man, wing person anyone can ever have.
Yes.
So another thing about after birthing the book and realizing I can write. I need help, but I can write.
Yes.
Well, now I want to teach people about this more robustly. And so I have created a curriculum about being a chief of staff. It is 10 courses long. It provides some one-to-one coaching with me. So it's a little bit different than the ones that are out there because you're going to actually interact with me. It exposes you to my network. And we go through what are, again, some of the things that as a chief of staff that you should know. We talk about leadership. We talk about organizational health. We talk about communication styles. Everything that I've been able to experience with my community, with my network, we discuss in this program. And it's at a minimum, it's 3 months. At the height of it, it's 6 months. And you go through these classes on a schedule, understanding, again, those core competencies about being a chief of staff.
Excellent. And how can they find out more about that?
Go to my website, annemarieotanez.com. And I've got a lot of information, but it has the training program. If you are not connected with me on LinkedIn or Instagram, connect with me on both of those platforms. DM me. I actually respond.
Yes.
And it's me, not a robot, but I'll respond. Because of the heft of this program, I only take on so many students at a time because I do want to give that individualized attention as you're going through the program, because we adjust depending on what's going on. I'm working with a woman right now who has completely pivoted from some of the things that are going on in the program because she's taking her job in a different direction. And so we adjust to make sure that it's relevant to what's going on to you today, not just what's relevant for the role in general.
I love that. So it's applicable no matter what.
Yes.
I love it. So I want to leave you with the last words. So I don't know if there's something you want to share that I haven't asked, or brought up, or if there's just a word of encouragement you want to give to those who are watching either now or maybe even later.
I think the last words that I would love to share is, one, if you are curious about this role, if you're just curious about coaching in general, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation, because the method that I use is so it's simple and it's very practical. If you're curious specifically about elevating yourself as a chief of staff, or if you're an executive and you don't know how to get started with a chief of staff, reach out to me, because I can help you build that framework and it makes sure that you pull in the relevant points to have you hire that chief of staff that's going to be the force multiplier in your org. The last thing that I would leave with everyone is, and this is again from our relationship, anything is possible. I did not think that I would write a book. There's a lot of things that are on my list to do. And this was not one of them. And like I said, I've got another one that's mingling in my mind right now, and probably a third. So if there's something that you want to go after it. Don't stress about your age. Don't stress about what you're doing with your job. All those things are secondary. Go after the thing that is your passion, that is your dream. Chase it, because it might want to get caught.
Chase it, because it might want to get caught. It's waiting for you to catch up to it. Like,
Yes.
Good deal. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. But I'm glad to be able to have this conversation.
Yes.
And I pray that someone is inspired and motivated to go after their dream, whatever
Yes.
that may be.
Absolutely. Thank you again for a few minutes. And I'm looking forward to the emails, because we're still working together. So,
Yeah, right.
We haven't said that to everybody. We started on one project, and then I was like, can you help me with this other project? So
yes.
Thank you for just helping me dream a little bit bigger than I thought I could.
It's my absolute pleasure. Well, I'll give you back the rest of your day, and I will see you in the emails.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.